Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching our video today. This is our 2026 grants webinar from the California Arts Council. My name is Charlie O'Malley. My pronouns are he, him, and I work at the California Arts Council's Literary Arts Specialist. I'm here with my colleague, Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Taggart. I'm also an arts program specialist here at the California Arts Council, and we are happy to present this to you today.
Up on the screen right now is a list of the rest of our programs on the specialist team.
Now, before we get started, we'll open with our formal agency's land acknowledgement. The California Arts Council acknowledges the original inhabitants of the lands now called California, and that California continues to be home to many indigenous communities. Generations of tribal communities develop deep understandings of the land and continue long-standing relationships with the land, water, air, plant, and animal beings through ceremony, culture, and stewardship. These communities are not only an important part of our history as contemporary Californians, but are important voices in our contemporary understanding of this place. In acknowledging the violent history of the founding of the state of California, its support of state-sponsored genocide, the misrepresentation of indigenous peoples and their culture, and the erasure of their contributions to our shared history, we at the California Arts Council recognize our responsibilities to indigenous communities, and we are compelled to support tribes, tribal organizations, and related organizations, including arts organizations, and their effort to uplift indigenous people and communities. With these ideals in mind, we recognize today that the California Arts Council is a statewide organization with staff and council members residing in numerous occupied territories of tribal nations, and that we are recording this webinar from the homelands of the Maidu, Miwok, Nisnan, Patwin, and Wintun people of the Sacramento region.
This is a brief overview of what we're going to be covering in the workshop today. We'll take a quick look at the California Arts Council and our grant cycle. We'll go through general eligibility, and we'll talk about our grants programs. Then we will talk about our grants guidelines, grants manual, and other resources. We'll review some of the application elements, and we'll go over some grant writing tips.
Now, before getting into the grant details, we'd like to start with just who we are and what we do here at the CAC. The California Arts Council, which we call CAC, is a state agency that was established in 1976. So this is our 50th year in operation. Our agency's mission is to strengthen arts, culture, and creative expression to help build a better California for everyone. And our agency's work is guided by a vision of a California where all people flourish with universal access to and participation in the arts. Our funding is decided by the governor and the legislature, and the grant funds come from the state budget under the local assistance. The Arts Council is an actual council. It's led by 11 people who are appointed, and they set policies, decide which grant programs to open, and make the final decisions on all grants awards. So as you can see on the screen, we have a graphic of our annual grant cycle. The first step happens when that appointed council holds public meetings to set priorities and policy goals, and then they vote on which grant programs to open. We, the staff, then take the decisions made at that vote and develop the grant guidelines and the grant applications. We also start recruiting and coordinating panels of peer reviewers. When the application window opens, as it is now, the CAC staff, we launch technical assistance like this webinar. We hold office hours and outreach services to help organizations apply to grants. And once the grant deadline is passed, the staff, we send eligible applications to the panelists who review and rank these applications. Staff then use these panelist ranks and council priorities, which we'll discuss later, to provide different funding options based on available funds and the council's stated priorities. The council then votes on final funding scenarios at a public meeting. After that, the staff work with grantees and awardees to complete contracts, and we continue to support through the grant activity period and reporting, all until we get to start this cycle once more. Each grant program has specific eligibility requirements that's outlined in the guidelines, but in general, eligible applicants must be a 501c3 nonprofit organization, a unit of city, county, or Native American tribal government, or work with a California-based nonprofit fiscal sponsor. A fiscal sponsor is a nonprofit organization that can manage CAC grant funds for groups without a 501c3 status. It's important to note that for-profit entities, including LLCs and individuals, are not eligible, even with the fiscal sponsor. And since 2025, the CAC provided letter of agreement template is required to be used by fiscal sponsors in the applicant organization. If you don't use the template that we provide, your organization will not be eligible. All applicants, including fiscal sponsors, must be based in California and have at least 2 years of arts programming history. And the 2026 grants are for organizations only.
We're now going to briefly review each grant program and its general purpose. You can find comprehensive information for each program on our website and scan the QR code seen here. CAC grants can be categorized into one of 3 types: general operating, project support, and partnership support. Additionally, there are 2 programs funded by the CAC and managed by administering organizations, or AOs, that you can apply to this year: the Individual Artist Fellowship and the Folk and Traditional Arts Grant.
And now we'll talk about the specific grant programs we have open this year. Under the general operating support category, we have the General Operating Support Grant, which we often refer to as GEN. This is a program that consolidates CAC general operating programs that previously included statewide and regional networks, cultural pathways, and arts and cultural organization general operating support. So the purpose of this program is to provide direct funding to arts and cultural organizations in support of ongoing operations, prioritizing small organizations. Your maximum request amount is $30,000, and matching funds, a 1-to-1 match is required for organizations with total revenue above $250,000. There are total revenue restrictions this year. For an arts service network, organizations with a total revenue of $5 million or below can apply. You're an arts service network if your organization operates with the primary purpose of providing practical services for artists, creators, culture bearers, and/or arts and cultural organizations. So this could be if your organization is like a professional association, a coalition, or alliance. And if your organization was previously eligible for the statewide regional networks program, this would be your category. For arts producing or presenting organizations, the total revenue restriction is that organizations with $1.5 million TR or below can apply. You're an arts producing or presenting organization if you operate with the primary purpose of creating or exhibiting artistic or cultural and/or cultivating arts learning. So this could be if you're a museum, a music studio, or a theater. The program specialist for this program is Ariel Rubin.
We'll talk about how we can start with the Impacts Projects Grant, which we sometimes refer to as PRJ. The purpose of Impact Projects is to support arts organizations for collaborations between California-based artists and community members to address a community-defined need. Projects must use artistic practice to respond to issues experienced by historically and systemically under-resourced communities. Projects for this program should use the arts to create positive social change in their community. The maximum request amount for impact projects is $25,000. Matching funds are not required for impact projects. The total revenue restrictions are as follows. This grant is open to organizations with total revenues below $3 million a year. And there's one final restriction. An organization can apply to either impact projects or our Arts and Youth grant, but not both. The program specialists for this program are Natalie Peoples and Leslie Giovannini. They can be contacted at impactgrant@arts.ca.gov.
Also under project support this year, we have the Arts and Youth Grant. This grant supports meaningful arts participation and learning in diverse settings and contexts for infants, children, and youth ages birth to 25 by prioritizing programs that directly bridge barriers to access and participation. All types of projects previously funded by other youth-focused programs, such as arts education exposure, arts integration training, and creative youth development, are eligible to apply under this umbrella or program. The most you can request is $25,000, and matching funds are not required. This year, there is a new total revenue restriction. Organizations with total revenue below $5 million can apply. And again, the other restriction is that you must choose one project support grant. So you can either apply to Arts and Youth or Impact Project. And the program specialist is me, Emily Taggart, and you can reach me at artsyouthgrant@arts.ca.gov. And for individual artists, you can now apply to the CAC's Grant Statewide Fellowship Program. So to apply, locate your region on this statewide map, and each region is managed by a different administering organization or AO. You must submit your application through the AO for your region, and applicants may apply to only one region, and applications vary by region. We also have folk and traditional arts. The administering organization for this program is the California Alliance for Traditional Arts, or ACTA. This year, ACTA launched the Living Cultures Grant, which support folk and traditional arts across the state. These grants offer funding opportunities to individual artists, community groups, organizations, and tribal nations. This program focuses on keeping folk and traditional arts alive through learning, practice, tools, and community knowledge sharing. While the California Arts Council provides funding for these programs, applications are submitted directly through ACTA. If you're interested in learning more, you can find the program guidelines and application questions at ACTA online.
Finally, we have our partnership plans. We're going to start with the state local partners, or the SLP. The SLP program is how in each county to bring arts programs to local communities or nonprofit arts councils are chosen by the county's Board of Supervisors and act as the main arts contact for their region. Because of that, qualifying organizations have already been identified, and grant application is by invitation only. Each SLP gets state funding to support things like arts organization, arts education, cultural events, support for local artists, and programs that reflect the unique needs of their area. They also run Poetry Out Loud, a national poetry recitation program for high school students. It's one of the ways these local partners help connect local young people with the arts. We also have the State Local Partners Mentorship Grant, which funds existing SLPs to mentor organizations in counties that don't yet have an SLP in their county, with the goal of establishing one. Please note that all CAC grant applications must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. Tuesday. We highly encourage you to submit your application early. The CAC cannot extend the deadline for any reason, so please turn your applications in well ahead of the deadline.
So next, we'll review some key resources and elements to be aware of and to help you apply successfully. CAC applications are only accepted online through our online application system, sometimes referred to as Smart Simple, GMS, which stands for Grant Management System, or the Grants Portal. New applicants must register their organization in the portal first. For step-by-step instructions on how to register, we have several resources listed on our grants resource page. There are written step-by-step instructions in the grants manual. We also offer video tutorials on that page. If you're a returning applicant, these same resources can be used to help you work through the annual certification process, just to make sure that your mailing address and staff contacts are all up to date. Our grant guidelines provide an overview of each grant program, and they outline key information to help you prepare a strong proposal. We recommend always reading the guidelines in full before starting your application. Key sections to review include the program timeline, program goals, project requirements, application questions, and review criteria. The 2026 Grants Manual is a great comprehensive guide to the CAC's grant application process, covering each step from applying for a grant, panel review process, and how to manage an award. So you'll want to go to the grants resource page on our website to find the most up-to-date 2026 edition.
Before we dive into application details, we'll talk about budgets. The CAC's definition of total is the total cash inflow from your organization's most recently completed fiscal year. Cash inflow or income includes all earned income, for example, ticket sales, and contributed income, for example, grants, donations, contributions, one-time organizational funding, and operational grants. Regranting, pass-through, or restricted capital improvement funding are excluded from your organization's total revenue calculation. All programs have maximum request amounts. Be sure to observe this in the guidelines and design your proposal. And the maximum request amounts are just requests. Actual awards are determined in the allocations process, depending on panel ranks and the CAC's final local assistance budget. Some of the programs require a dollar-for-dollar match to support their award, meaning organizations must raise the same amount of funds or in-kind contributions. Eligible match sources include earned income like donations, grant funds, and state funds can't be included in this match. Support can also come from in-kind sources to meet that requirement. In-kind contributions are non-cash donations provided by third parties for which monetary value can be determined. These could be in the form of space, pro bono consultancy, training or services, organization volunteers, supplies, and other expendable property that's given free of charge to your organization. For additional information on in-kind contributions, we have an in-kind contributions document link guidelines and in the grants resources page of our website. Organizations that are awarded grants requiring a match should work with their internal finance team to review CAC and state requirements to track and report matching contributions. For two of our programs, there are restrictions based on budget size. For general operating support, total revenue for art, service, or network organizations must be above $5 million, and total revenue for arts producing and presenting organizations must be below $1.5 million. For impact projects, total revenue must be below $3 million, and for arts and youth, total revenue must be below $5 million.
Now we'll look more closely at the basic elements that are in the application. There are applicant organization information. You'll have some quantitative questions. If you're using a fiscal sponsor, you'll be asked for information about your fiscal sponsor, and you'll see a series of narrative questions. These are questions that give you the opportunity to tell the panelists about your project design, timeline, community to be served, and your organization's commitment to accessibility and equity. Every program has slightly different applications questions, so you can review the program-specific guidelines for a complete slate of questions. All applicants will have to complete a budget snapshot table where you can see here and list a minimum of 2 years of revenue and expense totals. If you're applying to a grant with a match required, you'll also complete this match table where you can show the sources where you intend to draw your matching support from. Again, your matching request has to be one to one. And if awarded, you'll have an opportunity to submit an updated matching table with your actual sources and amounts as part of your final report. Lastly, if you're applying to a project grant, the project budget table is required for our project-based grants. Just remember when you're filling this out to enter something in every column of the personnel expenses.
Applications also have a support materials section. Support materials could include artistic work samples, letters of support or testimonial, and examples of your organization's overall work. You'll want to make sure that all of your support materials are recent and relevant to the project proposal, clearly feature or identify lead artists if you have them, and use a medium that best fits your project. So if you're working in a performance discipline, you could consider submitting video files as your work samples. You are limited to 5 support materials, and each file type has instructions on length and format. Additional support materials that are longer than allowed won't be considered by the panelists. And finally, clearly label work and give the panelists any relevant context in the support materials notes field. Support materials will not receive higher or lower ranked based on their production quality. For example, a video taken on your phone would be evaluated the same as something professionally done. It doesn't have to be overly produced, and panelists are trained to not judge based on production quality. Finally, at the certification and release page, each applicant must certify they are in good standing with the California Secretary of State or SOS. Again, all details about what you need to apply are included in each program's guidelines. Now let's go over some things that this... Oh, why don't you take it, Emily?
Oh, no, you can go ahead.
Let's go over some things that the CAC can't fund. You can find the full list in the quote, "What we do not fund" document on our website. It's also linked in the project budget section of the grant application. Here are a few of the most common questions we get. Please check the full list to make sure your budget doesn't include anything that we can't fund. Some ineligible applicants include for-profit organizations or LLCs, even when using a fiscal sponsor, individuals when using even when using a fiscal sponsor, parent-teacher associations, booster clubs, and K-12 schools. Some ineligible activities and items might include or do include fundraising, lobbying, projects with religious purposes, construction projects, purchases or maintenance of land and buildings, equipment purchases, although equipment rentals are eligible, food and drinks, and finally, out-of-state travel.
So this year, the council has set some specific funding priorities for general operating support, impact projects, and arts and youth programs. Really want to stress that council funding priorities are not eligibility requirements. These are priorities that are applied after the panel review to support with the intention of supporting equitable funding distribution. The priorities are applied differently to each program, so please refer to the guidelines or contact the program specialist for more information. This includes priority support for organizations serving communities in the lower quartiles of the California Healthy Places Index, which we'll talk about in a second. The council also wants to prioritize funding for first-time grantees and smaller organizations with total revenues of $250,000 or less. The Healthy Places Index is a tool that the CAC uses. It's a tool that maps data on social conditions that affect health, things like education, job opportunities, income, housing, air and water quality, and more. So when you provide the zip codes that your programs serve, the CAC uses that to determine which API quartiles your organization is reaching. The priority is on zip codes in the lower 2 HPI quartiles. So on this map, you can see the dark and blue light, the light blue and dark blue areas. Those with a percentile rating between 0 and 49. Now, these areas include many rural, remote, and lower resource communities, as well as neighborhoods within cities. These are areas that have been historically and systemically underserved, and this focus helps promote greater geographic equity across the state. And just also note that the gray areas on this map without data are considered HPI 1.
So let's talk about some grant writing tips. Some tips to help you create a successful grant proposal. Number 1, know your audience. Your proposal is reviewed by panelists, not CAC staff or council members. These panelists are fellow Californians from across the state, artists,